that it's perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. This is a webinar about mastering the art of the elevator pitch. It is a partnership with ChickTech and Experian. I'm Laura Koulet. I am head of legal of marketing services at Experian. I also have a former life as a product manager and was once also in sales and marketing. So I've had many instances of having to refine my elevator pitch and my pitch to as I kind of transitioned throughout my career. And I'm here with my colleague, Marizette Galvez, and I'll let Marizette introduce herself.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, Marizette Galvez here, Senior Director of Software Development at Experian. I've been with Experian for 33 years, taking on various roles within the company. Currently, I lead a diverse team of architects, engineers, managers, and directors, all dedicated to supporting our core product at Experian. I'm thrilled to be a part of your career fair and eager to share my journey and insights as we explore the art of the elevator pitch. Back to you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Marizette. Okay, let's get into it. So the first piece that I want to go over is really why is it important to master your pitch? And there are a variety of ways that pitches might come about, but the idea is that you have a very succinct opening story and statement about yourself to make a strong impression on a future employer, someone that you're networking with, someone that, you know, might be a future colleague or someone that you want to be a future colleague. And the idea is to make that really strong first impression, right? And through that first impression, being able to state what your value proposition is very quickly and clearly so that people know who you are and the skills that you have and how they can be integrated into whatever role you might be seeking or job opportunity or networking that you're doing. So people have, you know, kind of immediately know who you are, what you're offering, and what you're looking for. And then that, you know, opens doors to new opportunities, but it might not just be the opportunity that you think you're, you know, chatting about or the person that you're chatting with. You never know where a conversation might lead or where an opportunity may go. So if you're talking to someone who maybe doesn't have an open role at the time, but knows somebody that does, and you have that really strong first, you know, impression about, you know, what you're looking for, what your background is, then they can kind of take some of that momentum that you've provided to them and talk to others about opportunities that might be a good fit for you. So the idea is that within an elevator ride, which is, you know, back to when people used to work solely in the office, but in the remote world too, you know, a 1 to 2 minute pitch of how you can really create that really strong first impression and, you know, someone can quickly understand your value, your skills, your background, and how that might weave into new opportunities that you might be seeking. So with that being said, how do you create a compelling pitch? So there are a variety of ways to approach this, but we try to break it down into kind of 3 core areas to focus on. Again, only with, you know, 60 seconds, let's say at a minimum, you know, up to 2 minutes. You want to be very precise and concise about what you're communicating. So the first thing to think about is what's your hook, right? What is a compelling statement about yourself that's going to interest whoever it is that you're talking to? That could be just sort of your caption, you know, I have 5 years experience in customer service and 1 year experience in coding, and I'm looking to continue to grow as a software developer. Then there's the body of the message, which is really the core of like who you are, what your experience is, and what you might be looking for. Maybe integrating an example of, you know, your background in there, and then the wrap or the conclusion is how do you encourage further conversation to keep the conversation going about what you're, you know, whether it's with a hiring manager, a recruiter, someone that you're networking with, so that you can either drill into more of the experience that you're looking for, ask the person you're talking to questions. So kind of having, you know, a loose framework around how you want to wrap the conversation depending on who you're talking with. So with that outline, I want to bring Marizette in to give her perspective on what would be a way, Marizette, that you would present yourself, right, through kind of the hook, the body, and then like wrapping it with your experience. And then also too, you've been a hiring manager clearly throughout much of your career. How do you look at these types of conversations as they come up? And I'll say too, when we're talking about a pitch, sometimes the way that it comes up is just someone saying, hey, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your background. So it's can be very fluid, but that's the opportunity when, as soon as you get the chance and someone's like, oh, tell me about yourself, like, what are you looking for? That you have this ready to go, you have the pitch sort of structured, that you've practiced and you understand, and then you can give it. So Maris, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, let me try that. So for this section, let's see, I will leverage my views and experiences, obviously, given that I have been in tech for quite some time. But let me start from the beginning here and start off with a hook, as what Laura has mentioned, which is a compelling statement that grabs attention. So for me, it would be like, as a woman, I guess, navigating through the landscape of technology, I've come to realize the power of resiliency and dedication. I guess the main thing is that regardless of the role or responsibility, challenges always motivate me. And I believe in turning challenges into opportunities, consistently giving my all, 100+% of my ability. So that would be a hook that I would say, Laura, that I would use for something to include as the key component within an elevator pitch. Now, talking about the body, as we mentioned earlier, it is an example of who we are, what we have done, what sets me apart, I guess, from everybody else. And so it could be a story, right? It could be something that has happened in the past as part of my career. And that's one of the examples that I would want to give here. So let's see, one of the things that I have recently completed is a project. I spearheaded the project, which is the successful migration of our software from mainframe to the cloud. This transformation has been tried many times in the past. I won't say multiple times in the past, and has unfortunately failed. However, my team and I embraced the opportunity. We took some calculated risk here and made hard decisions to ensure success. Through the process, we not only achieve our goal, but also we were able to develop a deep proficiency in cloud technology, which at that time was very new to us as we were entering the modernization project. The question of what sets me apart is not just my ability to drive the results, making the goal happen, but also the dedication to foster collaboration, innovation within my team. And truly, as a woman in technology, we all bring a unique perspective and a leadership style that values inclusivity and teamwork. And of course, the woman touch, right? That is definitely special to all of us. And this story highlights my capacity of how to lead and innovate, and then also showcasing the contributions and skills that women can bring to the tech industry. And as an ending there, I would approach each challenge with enthusiasm and commitment to grow. Even in setbacks, I see opportunities for potentially learning and maybe developing myself more as either a technician or as a leader. And so therefore, any kind of opportunity or challenges that we see along the way should not be taken as a failure, but instead as a learning. And as a woman transitioning to technology, I'm excited about the possibilities that lie ahead and always eager to leverage my skills and experiences to make sure that I can make a meaningful impact in the world of technology. So those are the three components that I see are very important for us to have in our elevator pitch. Again, summarizing it to the hook, the body, and the ending. How about you, Laura? Any example that you might want to share?
Yeah.
I know you've been through different industries as well, so you've got a lot to share here too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think so first of all, thank you. That was great. I loved your hook, the compelling statement that kind of was reframed, right? You weren't just talking about your experience, but you were really talking about like what it is that you can offer, setting aside, right, the details of what you've done and rather sort of saying like, this is how I view any sort of challenge that I find in the workplace. So I thought that was really great. So for myself, in the past, right, when I was transitioning right between careers, one thing I always did was emphasize my experience in the industry, even though I was applying different roles in an industry. So I've always been in essentially marketing services, technology. So my hook would be something like, I have over 10 years experience in marketing services technology. I've held a variety of roles, both from a sales and marketing role, product manager, and now in legal. And what that's allowed me to do is really take a holistic view of the customer problem that we're trying to solve and really deeply understand the challenges and the potential solutions that I can bring to the company because of my experience. So that would be an alternative where I haven't had a linear path, right? Typically for someone like myself who really am a technology attorney, you still kind of see people walking through like the standard path of, law school, some sort of clerkship, or maybe working on firm and then sort of ending up in-house, whereas I kind of started in-house in a different role and just kind of made my way into different roles within the industry. So that's always been a really interesting and relatable way for me to bring a different perspective, highlight how I can provide value to the company. And then in the body, kind of the core of my message, talk about those different roles and the type of challenges I've seen as the industry has transitioned. And then for myself, right, that my wrap usually would be something like, as I've mentioned, I've held a variety of roles, or is there any part of my experience you want to talk about more, or what exactly is it that you're looking for in this role for, to bring the company forward? Like what would be your key, the key skill or key mentality that you're looking for in this hire if I was interviewing? So that's always a way to, package up who am I? It's like this is a person who has been in the industry for a long time, who has a lot of different skills. How can I I'm out, the interviewer can then say like, oh, that's very interesting. How could I potentially use this unique candidate's experience in a way that I didn't necessarily foresee as being something that would be um, not available, but it's more of a unique offering or skill package that not everybody has. So that's where if you're transitioning, right, there's a way to weave in, like if you've been in retail or again customer service and you're making a transition to tech, those are all really good transferable skills. I'm a great listener. I listen to, I have deep experience, 10 years experience listening to customer challenges and working on solutions. I've recently applied that to, a certificate program that I did or an internship that I've done in technology where I've applied it in, this example. So Marizette used an example of transitioning right from the mainframe to the cloud. Any example, right, where you can highlight your past experience, linking in to the role that you're seeking, keeping it very relevant to the interviewer, I think is key because there's so many different experiences in your past that you can really pick from. But we want to narrow in on what's going to be relevant for this role, what's going to be relevant to the audience, and that's the person that you're talking to, who oftentimes has a variety of people of, sort of similar conversations they're having and really want to make your conversation pop and have that, little bit of extra interest and enthusiasm stick with the interviewer. Okay, so that was a lot of information, but with that, I do just want to have a couple of details that when you're thinking about what to include in your pitch, in addition to what Marizette has already talked about. So in this instance, right, Marizette and I had already introduced ourselves, but I've been in a variety of conversations where people actually just forget to even say sort of the context of the background of where they're coming from, maybe even if you're in a networking situation, their name. So make sure you say your name, your current role or background, just to immediately frame frame up who you are. And then really picking out the relevant skills that you want to highlight, right? So tailor the examples that you want to use to keep it relevant. And then, like I said, making sure that you have that unique value proposition and weaving in your past history as part of the conversation. And then, of course, having that final question to further the conversation. I'd like to spend more time learning about what you're looking for. Is there anything more you'd like me to elaborate on? Anything specifically that I mentioned that was of interest to you, and make sure it continues to be a dialogue. Again, keeping everything to kind of that 2-minute limit. Okay, so we are going to move on to the telling a story. So this, I think, comes in when you're in that second, follow-up, not even conversation, but perhaps that follow-up question. Is there anything more that you'd like me to elaborate on, right? And let's say an interviewer says, well, sure, why don't you tell me about a time that you had a challenge, and what did you do to solve it? And this is where storytelling comes in. So I think that when you think about a story, we often think about longer stories, but if we think about a story in the context of a pitch, it still has the same components, right? You want to provide context or background of setting the scene. So Marizette told a story saying, our company has tried moving from the mainframe to the cloud many times. It's a challenging need because the mainframe isn't as flexible and hasn't allowed us to move very quickly, whereas moving to the cloud allows us to do X, Y, and Z. And then your solution and the outcome is really where you can take the opportunity to highlight, again, your skill in being able to address the challenge and the outcome of being able to drive results and drive an impact for the company. And one tip when we think about telling stories, especially in these follow-up conversations, is staying positive. When someone talks about a challenge, sometimes it's easy to maybe front load why, the challenge and kind of elaborate on it was really difficult. This team wasn't doing this, we didn't have budget for this. Those are, not as important as the solution that you're going to talk about that you provided. So keep it positive, keep the challenge, sort of factual, succinct, and, in the spectrum, right? Just a small portion of what you're talking about. So Marizette, I know that you gave the example about moving to the cloud. Do you want to use that same example for, I guess, walking through this story? I don't know if you have another example you want to share of how you might use storytelling to emphasize the point and the skills that you're trying to convey to an interviewer.
Sure, Laura. So let's see. This would be related as well to the modernization project that my team and I worked on. So storytelling is basically being to come across with a really powerful way of telling your story and still putting across the message that you are still pitching, and making sure that you are heard. So let's start off with imagine being in the thick of our modernization project. People were excited to hear accomplishments, and then all of a sudden, AWS Cloud, for which we were still navigating at that time, threw us a curveball. There's always a curveball, right, for any project or anything that we do at times. Decisions that we have made have revealed gaps, bringing our project to a grinding halt, and it had a major impact on our progress and timeline. At that time, I wanted to panic, but instead of panicking, I brought everyone together to tackle the challenge head on. We had brainstorming sessions, asked for help from experts, and pushed the boundaries of innovation. It was a true test of our ability to think as one and be able to adapt. Through our combined efforts, we were able to overcome the problem, but even through that, we emerged, I think, stronger, not I think, but definitely stronger and more informed than before. To me, I think the key here is influence. By bringing the team together, fostering an environment of collaboration, and finding the solution that we needed, we were able to overcome the biggest hurdle that would have potentially caused the project to fail. I guess this story is not just about the project itself. It's about the power of storytelling, the power of being able to collectively put in the effort that was made and produced during the time of the challenge, and mainly the power of influence. It's about turning a challenge into opportunity, as I've mentioned in the earlier, and also converting those difficulties into successes. I mean, we all come through a challenge in our life, an issue, a problem, be it at work or in personal life. But I think that being able to go through that and being able to put a story out there that would encompass, I think, the challenges that you have gone through makes a big difference of how you see things going forward. That's one
Yeah.
story that I have there, Laura.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I really like how you tied it to what was the key thing that you were able to bring to the table to get past that impasse. And you said, influence. This really comes down to influence and being able to understand what the challenge is and move past it by bringing, all stakeholders together. And so that, to me, I have a vision in my head, right, of, okay, here's this, a project team that was churning along. I saw the engine stop, and then I
Yeah.
saw heads come together and a path forward. And that's the power of having that sort of front to end story as part of your pitch, as part of the response to a follow-up question, so that there's that emotional connection that all humans really relate to, right? We've heard stories since we're very young, and movies and TV shows, those are all stories of some sort. These are things that we relate to, and so that's just a very easy way to integrate that story into what can sometimes be an otherwise reiteration of a resume that, they already have your resume or LinkedIn profile or reference from somebody, whatever it might be. And this is just an opportunity to bring color to who you are, to bring life to that intangible piece of what you can bring to the table and make you stand out. So thank you, Marizette. That was a really good story. And I would want to learn more. Um, so with that being said, there are, I guess, we've talked about crafting the pitch itself and then telling a story either as part of your pitch or as part of that follow-up. But Marizette, there are other pointers I think we probably want to emphasize. Would you like to walk through just ways that, if someone's new to this and they're thinking about how do I write a pitch, what are some of the steps I need to take to make sure that I'm covering the ground I need to do, doing the homework I need to do to develop a good pitch. I'd love to hear your thoughts on things to think about.
Sure. So, crafting your personalized elevator pitch is very important. It doesn't come naturally, right? It's something that you would have to think of, make sure that you have everything in as truthful as you can be of how you feel your pitch should be. So there are different steps that you can take to do that. First and foremost is self-assessment. You need to be able to identify your strengths and unique selling points. So reflect on the skills, experiences, and really what sets you apart, as we have mentioned earlier, from others within your field. Be able to consider what makes you uniquely fit for the role that you're targeting. And it should always be tailored to you and who you are and what you're looking for. Secondly, as part of that self-assessment, it's truly to understand your audience. So consider who you'll be speaking to and what they might find valuable or interesting about your background. Again, tailor your pitch, right, to address their specific needs and really be able to meet the concerns or the asks or what they're looking for with regards to the company, the industry, or the role that you're trying to get to. Secondly is write your pitch. I know that some of us are able to do this automatically, but I think writing your pitch would allow you to really have a good connection to what you're trying to impart with regards to your elevator pitch. So follow like a step-by-step guideline, breaking down the process of writing each component of your speech, or rather your pitch, and make sure that you have your introduction, your selling point, and closing statement, as we've said earlier. You've got your hook, your body, and your closing. Experiment with different orders, right? You don't have to go into a certain sequence. Make what is the most compelling structure for you and what you feel comfortable with. Another one is having the clarity, the conciseness, and the impact. Very important to have that as we are trying to kind of sell ourselves as part of having this pitch, is to ensure that you have it as impactful as it can be, always focusing on communicating your value, the proposition in a way that makes it easy to understand and for them to remember, as what Laura said earlier. How can you always come back and be able to maybe even ask the question and for them to remember that you've asked that question, right? And have the spark that you're always there. Hey, I'm really interested in this. I want to make sure that you're aware that, I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have, things in that manner to where you would be able to get your audience attention and let them know why you're the ideal candidate for the role. And then lastly is by integrating a story, as what I have just depicted earlier with regards to the story of a hurdle that we encountered during our project. So choose a story from a very relevant story from your experiences that would highlight your strengths and also align with the role that you're pursuing. So it can't be a story that is not within the realm of what you're trying to pursue. And the story could be about overcoming a challenge, just like I did. Maybe demonstrating leadership as part of that is influencing people, or achieving a significant accomplishment, meeting the goal of what that project had for the story that you would be giving. And also weave your story into the pitch. It should be seamless in incorporating the chosen story and structure it within your pitch. So it can't be coming from all in the different areas. Always make sure that it's seamless and it's structured within the pitch. So you can even use an illustration to support your key selling points or to provide context for your background and skills. That could also be part of that storyline. And then, of course, ensure that the story highlights the unique value proposition, right? Make sure that your story shares and emphasizes why you're the best fit for the role. And it should really showcase your talent, your abilities, your experiences, all the qualities that make you stand out as a candidate. So by following these steps and really make sure that you have crafted a personalized elevator pitch, and that it incorporates self-assessment, clear writing, a good storytelling, you'll be better, I guess, equipped to effectively communicate your value to potential employers or anybody that you would be networking with in the industry. You might not even be looking for a job. It could just be a part of your networking, but it would make a big impact on who you are and how you present yourself within the industry. So that's how I see being able to craft a personalized elevator pitch. Laura,
That's awesome.
back
Yes,
to
that's
you.
excellent. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that recap. I think those are all really good points. And one thing that you said that we actually haven't talked about yet that I do want to emphasize is you talked about questions, right? That the way in which you might ask questions or the questions you might ask might really be, reflective of you as a candidate. And I think that that can be part of your story and your pitch. The type of question that you ask is reflective, right, of the things you're thinking about, the details you want to have more information about. Those all play into this whole story that we're trying to help craft around your experience. So if you're able to reflect through your questions things that are also on the interviewer's mind, right? That show the depth of your involvement in the example that you gave around the challenge that you've had in your past experience. That is a really great way to continue to, keep the conversation going and paint the story of who you are and what you're seeking in your next role or through your networking experience. So I think that's all really good pointers. So thank you so much, Marizette. That's great to hear your perspective. I'll also just briefly touch on, once you have gone through the self-assessment, identifying the relevant experience in the story that you want to tell, the challenges that you might want to highlight, and the solutions that you had, as well as the questions you want to ask. I think a really important piece that sometimes can be not forgotten about, but is a piece of homework that you should do in addition to this, is really practicing your pitch, right? It can be tough when someone says, tell me about yourself, to tell the story in the succinct, clear way that you want to say it if you haven't practiced it. So either practice in a mirror or record yourself and play it back, on video. Everyone has a handheld camera in their pocket these days. So make sure you actually walk through the steps of rehearsing it out loud, see what works, what's fluid, what makes sense, clicks, and has a rhythm to it that you feel confident and enthusiastic telling. I think that is a really key piece. You don't want to give you want to give the impression, I'm confident in my experience, I'm excited about this opportunity, this is who I am, and refine from there. Be critical of yourself, or if that's something that might not be a skill that you have, bring in a trusted friend, family member, ask people what they think. Like, did that click with you? Did you feel excited to talk to me? Do you understand who I am? How could I be more clear? How could I be more relevant? Those are all questions that you want to sort out in your trusted circle before you're out talking to employers. Again, you might only have this one chance in order to get that second conversation or get referred by by someone. I talk to people all the time that are interested either like in working in the company. If I talk to them and they sound enthusiastic, they know what they want, they know their experience, I'm very happy to say, I had this quick conversation with this person, I just met them, but they seem great. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes I'm like, you should probably apply online. Not to say that that's always the way that it goes, but those are the opportunities to make an impression with whoever it is you're talking to, and having that rehearsal with yourself and with others that you trust before you get to, game time is really important, to tweak and refine your pitch, and making sure that it's exactly as you want it to be. And then I'll close before we get to questions on just some key takeaways that we've gone over, but I know there's a lot of information. We've talked about a lot of things in this webinar so far. So just in the end, I think it boils down to three key things, right? Keep it precise and concise. So talk about the experience that's relevant, and make sure that you have refined it to be, again, under that 2 minutes, in order to make it impactful, make sure people can remember what you're saying and who you are. You don't want to provide too much information. You don't want to overwhelm the listener and have them start to drift. This might be the fourth conversation they're having in an hour, if it's a 15-minute phone screen, whatever it might be. So you really want to be impactful and have that ability to drive your point home quickly. Again, stay relevant and stay specific with your examples and stories. So you can pick from years and years of experience, or choose to pick out those little pieces of tidbits that the interviewer or this company would find interesting, that would be helpful, and that would be, again, conveying who you are for this. You don't want to be vague or generic. You don't want to say, I'm great at problem solving. You'd want to say something like, I'm really good at problem solving when there's been, multiple people who have input on this problem, and I understand what the direction is. Then I can take it back and come up with an actionable plan for a project moving forward. Although essentially saying the same thing, you're good at problem solving. One is adding more detail of how you might do it, and just providing, again, more detail as they can envision you in the role. And then the last is, right, being positive and being enthusiastic. That is key. And I think it says a lot for someone's ability to feel energized by the conversation that you're having with them, and seeing you in the role as a way that can kind of continue to bring energy to the team that you might be considering joining. So those are the three things I'd keep in mind, in addition to all the other details that we went over. But if you take three things away, this would be it. So hope that is very helpful. Thank you, Marizette, for all your insight and examples. And now I'd love for us to take any questions from the Chick Tech community that might have come up. So Renee, if you're still on, if you have any questions that we can help answer, we'd love to do that.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you both so much for being here and sharing your perspective and your expertise, especially from two very impressive career paths within tech. So we really appreciate you being here today. The first question that came up was, we learned how to create an elevator pitch. We understand why it's important. Do you have any advice you can share on, networking can be very nerve-wracking, and when you might bring this up? When to jump in and talk about this with people, or when to share, especially if you're in a whole room where you anticipate that's what they're hearing, the whole event.
Yeah. So just to clarify, so you mean when do you bring up your pitch? If you're networking? Yeah, I'm happy to take that one first. So I think, like all things, you want to read the moment and read the conversation. But I think as soon as you have someone's ear, you have an opportunity to kind of slide in and have that conversation. You just say, "Hi, I'm Laura Koulet. So nice to meet you. I loved the presentation that you gave earlier if it's someone that was on a panel, or I see you work at, Acme company. I really admire the work that you do. I love your app. And then you launch into it. I have 10 years experience or 3 years experience in, software development. It's been a passion of mine, because I find, debugging software, whatever it might be, then you launch into your pitch. So I think it's just finding that opportunity the way that you would with any other conversation. And once you have that opening, then you can launch into it. But I also think this is where having that practice and, having done the homework and prep will make you feel more confident. And also too, having a couple different versions of knowing you can do a 30-second to 60-second introduction for yourself and then do the rest through follow-up questions. Or if you think you might have a little bit more opportunity to talk, tacking on that example or that story to that beginning. So that would be my suggestion, is just be prepared for the opportunity when it comes along. That in my house, we have a saying where I think it might have originated with Benjamin Franklin, but it's something like, there's no such thing as luck. It's when opportunity meets hard work and preparation. So just be prepared for that moment that you have the opportunity to put your work on display of what you've worked on in terms of developing your pitch. And Marizette, I'd love to hear if you have a different thought on that.
Sure. No, actually, what you said about having multiple different versions is great, Laura, right? I mean, definitely you have to be prepared for any type of situation. So when we talk about networking, you're networking within different areas of the business, but also you can be networking within your area of business, right? So it could be within Experian. All of a sudden you go into an elevator and you see one of the CEOs or, CTOs in the elevator, and hey, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Marizette Galvez. I know that you're the CTO of this business unit, and I understand that you guys are doing some type of a migration process. I'm also doing the same for our business unit, and this is what we have accomplished so far, and continue on with that pitch. I mean, there is no harm in introducing yourself and really sharing what is valuable that you have done, and this is within the confines of the same company, and that is still networking. Right? And be able to kind of take yourself out there and be able to be seen and be relevant, as what Laura has mentioned as part of the elevator pitch, truly is that being able to come up with your story very quickly and to be able to relay that in a very impactful way. In a short period of time, being in the elevator for a few, I want to say a minute, maybe, if it's the next floor, or even less, right? But yeah, definitely something that would be impactful, as hence the call elevator pitch.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really great point about internal networking, because I think that is some of the most valuable networking that you can do, especially if your company has a role that you might be interested in, because it's going to be potentially one of the easier paths, because people know your work ethic, know the work you've done in a different context. You have the company experience as well as the industry experience. Those are all things that kind of snowball into a compelling story as to why, you might be able to get, that next role, that promotion, work on a new project team. Those are all things. Yeah, internal networking is very important. I'm really glad that you brought that up. Yeah.
Yes, that's a great reminder. Thank you so much for, bringing that up. The elevator pitch is a great tool to have, because you never know when you're going to need it. So that's a great example. And so, kind of going off of that and being ready, some of the tips were, practicing your elevator pitch, having it ready to roll, different lengths, different variations. Is there any more advice you might be able to give, just speaking about having the confidence? Maybe you are prepared, maybe you've practiced, but having the confidence in the moment and channeling that to just put yourself out there, say hello, and just make that connection.
I can take that first, Laura, if you want.
Yeah.
So I think practicing, you're right, internally. And I have to tell you, Renee, my husband has probably heard my pitch hundreds of times in the past, because I do practice, right, in front of him, and being able to perfect that. There is no such thing as perfection when it comes to a pitch. It all varies in the different situations that you're in. However, as long as you can give the true meaning of what you're trying to imply, for example, about myself, knowing that what I'd like to do most is to be able to influence people, to be able to collaborate. That is the pitch that you're trying to put out there, and that's repetitive. Anything that that goes beyond an example, for an example that you might want to give within the conversation, that can vary, obviously, depending on who you're speaking to. But who you are and your true self of what you want for yourself, I guess, to show and be impactful, stays the same. So confidence definitely is a factor in being able to deliver that, I guess, perfectly and impactful. However, practice also makes a big difference, right? So the more you do it, the more you put yourself out there and show yourself. And again, the core of it is truly, what is it that you want to imply of yourself that would impact the person that's in front of you, or the company that you're trying to apply for that particular position. So that part doesn't change. And I think that would be a lot easier to master going forward, instead of, trying to figure different things out, but always stick with the core that you would want to convey.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Yeah, because then you're just really, if in a moment where you kind of panic or you're not sure what to say, you at least have that crystallized point that you want to make. And I think the reality is too, sometimes it can be hard to get a conversation started, but once it's started, things can flow much more naturally, right? Everybody is human. And a lot, right? Most of our communication is nonverbal. So I think if you go in with the right intent, I want to connect with you, I want to convey this piece of, information about myself, the details will come together, even if it's like a little bit of a rocky start, because it's a bit awkward sometimes to make those conversations. And I understand that. I have been to many events where it feels a bit uncomfortable to kind of, slide in and have that conversation. But once it gets going and your intent is, wanting to connect and just have a quick conversation and understand them and tell a little bit about yourself, usually it starts to, flow more naturally, and questions start flowing. So I think just get out there, just be in the arena, and, have confidence that you will, even if it feels awkward for the first 30 seconds, it will pass, and, you'll continue to have that conversation that you wanted to have.
Awesome, awesome. Great tips, especially as we are preparing for the career fair. These are, definitely gems that people can implement immediately. And quick reminder that Experian will also be at the career fair, so you can learn more about this awesome team during that event. But, like I said, we have a lot of great takeaways today, from, keeping it solution focused and positive to customizing it to your own unique story. Thank you so much for all the great takeaways, Laura and Marizette. We appreciate your time. And thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you, Marizette, for all your great tidbits and examples. Really helpful in illustrating the points we were making.
No, and thank you to Laura for facilitating this webinar. And of course, all the ideas that you have shared here as well. And Renee, thank you for having us. Definitely great partnership with Chick Tech, and looking forward to the career fair that you guys are having.
Same.
Thank you. Okay, don't leave.
Okay.
It's not like a regular webinar where we can leave. Okay, let me stop the recording.
I'm also stopped.